Dr. Xylox straightened all 6 of his appendages and cleared his throat tubes, a gesture he'd picked up from his human colleagues. The amphitheater of the Galactic Science Academy was packed with representatives from 37 spacefaring civilizations, all eager to hear about the latest failure in the most frustrating research project in known space. "Distinguished colleagues," he began, his translation unit converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common, "today marks the 743rd documented attempt to activate the Rari armor system." He paused for effect. "And yes, before you ask, this one also ended in complete failure." A ripple of murmurs swept through the audience. The Zentari delegation's crystalline forms flickered with amusement. They'd failed spectacularly last month when their best warrior had tried to interface with the armor and ended up speaking in rhyming couplets for 3 days straight. The armor in question hovered in a containment field behind Dr. Xylox. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Sleek, gunmetal grey plates that seemed to flow like liquid mercury when touched, with lines of soft blue light pulsing along its seams, found in the wreckage of an ancient Rari survey vessel. It was the only intact piece of technology ever recovered from the mysterious precursor race. "As you can see from the data," Dr. Xylox continued, projecting a holographic chart, "we've tested genetic compatibility across all known sentient species. The Murgath attempted neural synchronization. Their test subject's fur grew back purple. The Quantum Collective tried to merge with it. They're still trying to unscramble their shared consciousness. Even the Void Dancers, with their notorious ability to adapt to any environment, couldn't establish a connection. The Void Dancers' representative, a being of pure energy contained in a modified environment suit, dimmed slightly in embarrassment. Their attempt had resulted in the armor playing old comedy shows from across the galaxy for 3 weeks straight. The armor's security systems are, quite frankly, making a mockery of our best efforts," Dr. Xylox admitted. "It seems to have developed what our human colleagues would call a sense of humor about rejecting unsuitable candidates." He brought up footage from recent attempts, a hive mind drone dissolving into a puddle of giggles, a proud Kraxan warrior suddenly developing an uncontrollable urge to knit, a techno-organic hybrid speaking exclusively in ancient pop song lyrics. "Our analysis suggests the armor contains quantum-locked genetic markers," he explained, "but its criteria for acceptance remain incomprehensible. It's as if," he paused, mandibles twitching in scientific frustration, "it's waiting for something specific or someone." A voice called from the back of the amphitheater, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" The resulting laughter was cut short by a subtle vibration from the armor, almost like a chuckle. Dr. Xylox's sensors picked up a momentary spike in its energy readings. He'd learned to dread those spikes. They usually preceded something embarrassing. "We're continuing our research," he concluded hastily, "but I must remind everyone that unauthorized attempts to activate the armor are strictly prohibited. We're still trying to restore Ambassador Zeus-Tral's original color scheme after last week's incident." As the audience filed out, Dr. Xylox turned to stare at the armor. For a moment, he could have sworn the pulsing lights formed a pattern that looked suspiciously like a winking face. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, he was sure the Rari were laughing at them all. Zhen Li had a reputation for fixing things that weren't technically broken. Her official file at the Xenotechnology Division read, "Unconventional Solutions Specialist," but her colleagues had other names for her role. Chaos Engineer, Professional Problem Wrecker, and her personal favorite, that human who makes things worse until they get better. It was this last title that caught Dr. Xylox's attention when he was scrolling through potential candidates for the Rari armor project. The fact that she'd once fixed a malfunctioning quantum drive by introducing a control paradox into its systems was particularly intriguing. The incident report noted she'd explained her solution as, "Sometimes you have to crash the program to find the bug." When she walked into the high-security research facility on Europa Prime, Jen was wearing mismatched boots and carrying a toolbox that had definitely seen better centuries. The security AI almost had a breakdown trying to catalog the contents. "Is that a rubber chicken in your toolkit?" Dr. Xylox asked, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Quantum entangled diagnostic tool," Jen replied without missing a beat. "Also good for pranks during lunch breaks." She grinned at the Zentari scientist who was slowly backing away from her workstation. "Don't worry, it only explodes on Tuesdays." "It is Tuesday," the Zentari pointed out, crystal structure flickering nervously. Really? I've been in the quantum mechanics lab. Could be any day of the week for me right now. Dr. Zylox watched as she approached the armor, which was still floating in its containment field. The research team held their breath, expecting another display of the armor's notorious rejection protocols. Interesting, Zhen muttered, pulling out a device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and optimism. You've been treating it like a security system that needs to be cracked. She waved the device around, which emitted sounds suspiciously similar to an ancient Earth video game. But what if it's more like a bouncer at an exclusive club? Oh, what? The Void Dancer representative flickered in confusion. You know, someone who checks if you're cool enough to enter. Have you tried just asking it nicely? The assembled scientists exchanged glances, 743 attempts, billions in research funding, and not once had anyone simply tried to be polite to the armor. Miss Li, a quantum collective node, chimed in, its voice dripping with disdain. This is highly sophisticated precursor technology, not a nightclub security system. Zhen shrugged, pulling a sandwich from her pocket and taking a bite. Same principle. Everyone's so busy trying to prove they deserve to get in, they forget to just vibe with the doorman. She gestured at the armor with her half-eaten lunch. Look at it, those energy patterns, that's not a defense system on alert. That's someone trying not to laugh at all the fancy people making fools of themselves. The armor's light patterns shifted slightly, almost as if in acknowledgement. You cannot be serious, the quantum collective node protested. We've applied the most advanced analytical methods in the galaxy. And how's that working out for you? Zhen finished her sandwich and pulled out the rubber chicken. Sometimes the most advanced solution is actually the simplest one. You just have to be willing to look ridiculous finding it. Dr. Zylox watched as she began setting up what looked like a combination of a disco ball, 3 different species gaming consoles, and something that might have been a toaster. What exactly are you planning to do? He asked, dreading the answer. Oh, you know, Zhen replied with a grin that somehow managed to be both reassuring and terrifying. Just going to hang out with it, maybe watch some old movies, share some snacks, you know, standard first date protocol. The armor's lights pulsed in what could only be described as anticipation. The research facility's break room had never been so crowded. Scientists from across the galaxy huddled around monitors, watching as Zhen conducted what she called diplomatic relations with the Rari armor. Her methods were, to put it mildly, unconventional. Day 5 of Operation Make Friends with the Fancy Spacesuit, Zhen announced to her recording device, sprawled in a chair next to the containment field. Subject continues to display signs of being an excellent listener, though its taste in music is questionable. Who knew ancient armor would be a fan of classical death metal? The armor's light patterns pulsed in sync with the aggressive beats filling the room. A Murgoth scientist covered all 4 sets of ears. Previous attempts to interface with the armor, Zhen continued, munching on spicy chips, focused on force-feeding it genetic sequences and neural patterns. But look at these response readings when we just hang out. Dr. Zylox had to admit the data was fascinating. The armor's energy signature had shifted from its usual defensive pattern to something more relaxed. It reminded him of the way humans looked after what they called a good party. The hive mind tried to overwhelm it with collective consciousness, Zhen explained, wiping orange chip dust on her lab coat. The quantum collective attempted to merge with its operating system. The Void Dancers tried to adapt to its frequency, but nobody tried to just be themselves around it. She stood up, stretching. It's like meeting someone new at a party. You don't start by trying to merge consciousness or adapt to their fundamental frequency. You start with small talk, maybe share some snacks, find out what movies they like. The armor's lights flickered in what seemed like agreement. Miss Li, the quantum collective node, interrupted. While your social experiment is interesting, we need actual results. The funding committee. Oh, right, Zhen jumped up. Check this out. Hey, buddy, remember that game we were playing yesterday? The armor's surface rippled, and suddenly the room was filled with a holographic display of what appeared to be an ancient Earth video game called Pong. Now watch this, Zhen grinned. She reached out toward the containment field, and to everyone's shock, the armor responded by extending a tendril of liquid metal toward her hand. Warning alarms blared, 3 different containment protocols activated. The Zentari scientist nearly crystallized in panic. Relax, Zhen called out. We're just playing catch. The tendril of liquid metal formed into a ball, bouncing between Zhen's hand and the armor in perfect rhythm with the game display. But that's impossible, Dr. Zylox stammered. The armor's defensive protocols aren't defensive protocols at all, Zhen interrupted. They're social protocols. The armor doesn't reject unsuitable candidates. It rejects people who don't know how to have fun. She turned to face the assembled scientists. Think about it. Every species tried to interface with it based on their own assumptions. The hive mind thought it needed collective consciousness. The quantum collective tried pure logic. The void dancers attempted adaptation, but what if the Rari weren't looking for the most advanced or adaptable users? The armor's surface suddenly rippled with patterns that looked suspiciously like laughter. What if, Zhen continued, now juggling 3 balls of liquid metal the armor had formed, they were looking for people who could appreciate the absurdity of existence, who could laugh at themselves, who could find joy in the chaos of the universe. She tossed one of the metal balls high in the air. Instead of falling, it transformed into a shower of sparkling lights that danced around the room. Human biology isn't special because of our DNA, she explained, watching the light show with childlike wonder. It's special because we never lost our ability to play, to joke, to find humor in the darkest corners of space. The armor suddenly retracted its liquid metal components and began to hover, moving out of the containment field for the first time in years. The assembled scientists held their breath. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other configurations of sentient being, Zhen announced with a theatrical bow, I believe the Rari armor is ready for its first test drive, and it's picked its driver. The armor floated toward her, its surface flowing like quicksilver, light patterns forming what was unmistakably a smiley face. Just one question, Dr. Zylox managed to ask. How can you be sure it's safe? Zhen shrugged, reaching out to touch the armor's surface. Safe is relative, but fun is universal. The armor wrapped around her hand, warm and alive, like greeting an old friend. Besides, she added with a wink, any civilization advanced enough to create this had to have a great sense of humor. Otherwise, what's the point of being advanced at all? The moment the armor fully bonded with Zhen, every computer system in the facility went haywire. Holographic displays erupted with cascading symbols, ancient Rari script scrolling faster than any translation matrix could process. Through it all, Zhen stood calmly in the center of the chaos, the armor flowing around her like liquid starlight. Oh, she said simply, as if reading a particularly interesting menu. Well, that explains a lot. What explains what? Dr. Zylox demanded, his appendages frantically working multiple control panels trying to contain the data surge. What's happening? The armor's surface rippled with patterns of light that seemed to dance in harmony with Zhen's heartbeat. It's not armor, she explained, watching the symbols flow around her. Well, not just armor. It's a message in a bottle, or more accurately, a message in a really fancy spacesuit. The quantum collective node began to pulse rapidly. Impossible. Our analysis was exactly what the Rari expected everyone to do, Zhen interrupted. Run analysis. Try to crack it. Treat it like a weapon or a defense system. She smiled as the armor adjusted its fit, conforming perfectly to her movements. But they knew eventually someone would come along who'd treat it like a person instead of a puzzle. The facility's main display suddenly cleared, showing a single image, a being that looked remarkably human, but not quite, taller with slight differences in proportion and skin that seemed to shimmer with the same metallic quality as the armor. Meet the Rari, Zhen announced, or as they called themselves, the First Laughters. Dr. Zylox's translation unit struggled with the concept. The first what? They were the first species in our galaxy to evolve the ability to laugh, Zhen explained, as the armor shared its ancient knowledge with her. The first to find humor in existence itself, and they thought that was the most important thing they'd ever discovered, more than faster than light travel, more than quantum manipulation, more than dimensional engineering. The holographic Rari figure began to move, its message finally playing after millennia of waiting. To those who have found joy in the absurd, the translation came through. We entrust our legacy. We were not the strongest, the smartest, or the most numerous species in the galaxy, but we were the first to understand that the universe itself is a cosmic joke, and that those who can laugh at it are the ones who truly understand it. More images appeared, Rari ships seeding various worlds with genetic material, running vast experiments across millennia. Dr. Zylox gasped as he recognized one of the planets. Earth, he whispered. They visited Earth. More than visited, Zhen corrected, the armor showing her visions of the distant past. They were looking for someone to pass the torch to, a species that could evolve their most important trait, the ability to laugh in the face of an infinite, absurd universe. They seeded dozens of worlds, but only one developed exactly what they were looking for. The Void Dancer representative flickered uncertainly. Are you saying humans are their designated successors? Sort of, Zhen shrugged, causing ripples of light to dance across the armor's surface. More like their spiritual heirs. They didn't want to create copies of themselves. They wanted to find a species that would naturally evolve to understand what they considered the most important truth in the universe. Which is, the Zentari scientist asked, crystal structure vibrating with curiosity. That existence is ridiculous. The universe runs on chaos as much as physics, and the only sane response is to laugh and make the best of it. Zhen grinned as the armor projected more Rari text into the air. They left their technology for whoever could figure that out. Not the strongest, not the smartest, but the ones who could look at the fundamental absurdity of existence and find it hilarious. The holographic Rari spoke again. Our time in this galaxy is ending. We leave these gifts not as weapons or tools of power, but as toys for those who understand play as the highest form of evolution. The armor will bond only with those who carry not just our genes, but our joy. Dr. Zylox watched in amazement as the armor transformed, parts of it becoming transparent, revealing incredibly advanced technology, merged seamlessly with what appeared to be comedy props and game systems. The most advanced technology in known space, he muttered, and it's partly powered by jokes. The Rari believed that any species advanced enough to master the physics of the universe without losing their sense of wonder and fun was worthy of their legacy, Zhen explained. The armor isn't just a protective shell, it's a key to their entire technological archive, but it only works if you're having fun using it. The final message from the Rari materialized. To our children of laughter, the universe is yours to explore. Try not to break it, but if you do, try to break it in funny ways. And remember, the only appropriate response to the infinite is infinite amusement. Zhen looked down at her armored form, now glowing with the full power of an ancient civilization's legacy. Well, she said with a grin that would have made the Rari proud, this is going to make Casual Friday a lot more interesting. The testing chamber echoed with laughter as Zhen zoomed past observation windows, the Rari armor leaving trails of sparkling light in her wake. Dr. Zylox watched in amazement as she performed what she called a superhero landing, completely unnecessary but, as she insisted, absolutely essential for style points. The armor's power consumption is off the charts, the Quantum Collective node reported, but it's regenerating energy faster than it's using it. That's because you're measuring the wrong thing, Zhen called out, doing a mid-air backflip. Stop watching the power readings and look at the fun readings. There's no such thing as fun read. The node paused as new data scrolled across its display. That's impossible. The armor is converting positive emotional responses into energy. Better living through laughter, Zhen confirmed, creating solid light constructs that looked suspiciously like playground equipment. The Rari understood that joy isn't just an emotion, it's a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity, but with better jokes. Over the next few hours, the research team watched as Zhen discovered new capabilities of the armor, each one more outrageous than the last. It could generate force fields, but they looked like soap bubbles and made popping sounds when hit. Its weapon systems existed, but they fired what Zhen described as weaponized party favors, energy blasts that left targets unharmed but covered in sparkly confetti. The Rari were peaceful, she explained, hanging upside down in midair. They believed the best defense was making your opponent laugh so hard they forgot why they were fighting. Dr. Zylox found himself warming to the idea, especially after Zhen demonstrated the armor's tickle beam on a training dummy. The dummy was now telling jokes in 17 different languages. The Void Dancer representative, initially skeptical, became fascinated when Zhen showed how the armor could manipulate energy fields through dance moves. It's not just about movement, she explained, teaching the energy being a simple wave pattern. It's about finding rhythm in chaos. The Zentari scientists, with their crystalline logic, struggled the most to understand, until Zhen introduced them to the concept of slapstick physics, watching her deliberately trip. Only to have the armor transform the fall into an elaborate acrobatic sequence, they began to comprehend the mathematical beauty of perfectly timed comedic moments. Think of it like quantum mechanics, Zhen suggested, as the armor formed what appeared to be a floating circus ring around her. The observer affects the outcome, right? Well, if the observer is having fun, reality gets a lot more flexible. The breakthrough came during what was supposed to be a standard stress test. The facility's defense systems were programmed to fire harmless training pulses at Zhen. Instead of dodging or blocking, she turned it into an impromptu dance party. Each blast hit the armor and was transformed into musical notes, creating a surprisingly catchy tune. The armor doesn't just protect, she explained later, sharing strange Rari snacks the armor had somehow materialized. It transforms, turns attacks into entertainment, threats into theater, danger into dance moves. The Rari believed that anything can be beautiful if you look at it the right way. Dr. Zylox found himself nodding along, his earlier scientific skepticism melting away. But how do you control it? There must be some logical pattern to its responses. Zhen grinned, the armor shimming in sync with her amusement. That's the best part. You don't control it. You collaborate with it. It's like, she thought for a moment, like having a dance partner who always knows the next move but isn't afraid to improvise if you come up with something better. The Quantum Collective node, after analyzing hours of test footage, finally announced its conclusion. The armor's effectiveness appears to be directly proportional to the user's ability to maintain what humans call a sense of whimsy. Exactly, Zhen beamed. The more fun you're having, the more the armor can do. It's not about mastering it, it's about mastering the art of not taking yourself too seriously. As if to demonstrate, the armor suddenly sprouted what appeared to be a top hat and cane, and Zhen launched into an impromptu vaudeville routine that had even the most serious scientists struggling to maintain their composure. Tomorrow, she announced, tipping the light-constructed hat, we're going to work on what I call the Mary Poppins Protocol. Trust me, you haven't lived until you've seen what this suit can do with an umbrella and a positive attitude. The attack came during what Zhen called Taco Tuesday, a weekly tradition she'd started to help the research team bond. Dr. Zylox was just discovering the joy of extra hot sauce when the facility's alarm screamed to life. Multiple unauthorized vessels dropping out of hyperspace, the security AI announced. Energy signatures match known pirate clans. Hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 9. Through a viewing port, they watched as 3 battlecruisers bristling with weapons took up attack positions. The pirates, notorious for stealing advanced technology, had obviously learned about the Rari armor. Well, Zhen said calmly, putting down her taco, I guess this is what they call a practical exam. The armor flowed around her instantly, but instead of its usual playful light patterns, it pulsed with focused energy. Everyone get to the secure bunkers, this could get weird. You can't possibly face them alone, Dr. Zylox protested. Their ships have no sense of dramatic timing, Zhen finished, as the armor's surface rippled with anticipation. Let's fix that. The pirates breached the main laboratory doors with plasma cutters, expecting resistance. Instead, they found Zhen standing in the center of the room, the armor now configured to look like a game show host's outfit, complete with a light-constructed microphone. Welcome, space pirates, her voice boomed through the facility's speakers. You're just in time to be contestants on Who Wants to Get Their Butts Kicked Hilariously. I'm your host, Zhen Li, and boy, do we have some fantastic prizes for you today. The pirates, not used to this response to their terrifying presence, hesitated. That was all the opening she needed. The armor exploded into action, but not in any way the observers expected. Instead of traditional combat, Zhen turned the entire facility into what she later described as a cosmic carnival of chaos. Pirates shooting at her found their energy bolts transformed into butterflies. Gravity went sideways, then started playing musical notes every time someone took a step. You know the problem with modern space pirates? Zhen asked conversationally, as she dodged attacks with dance moves that somehow made perfect geometric patterns in the air. No sense of style, now the Rari, They knew how to make an entrance. The armor responded to her words, creating a series of increasingly ridiculous obstacles between her and the attackers. One group of pirates found themselves suddenly participating in what appeared to be a game show obstacle course. Another squad was caught in a time loop that had them reenacting famous comedy routines. Dr. Zylox watched from the security feeds as Zhen and the armor worked in perfect harmony. Every attack was not just deflected, but transformed into something absurd. Pirates slipped on quantum banana peels, laser blasts turned into rainbow bridges. One particularly aggressive attacker found himself suddenly starring in a one-man musical number about the importance of choosing a better career path. "This is beyond anything we theorized," the quantum collective node whispered in awe. "The armor isn't just defending, it's rewriting local reality matrices through the lens of comedy." The pirates, faced with a defense they had no protocol for, began to retreat. But Zhen wasn't finished. The armor extended its influence to their ships, transforming the fearsome battlecruisers into what appeared to be giant rubber ducks, complete with squeaking sounds as they tried to maneuver. "And that's our show for today, folks," Zhen announced to the retreating pirates. "Your consolation prize is a valuable lesson about the power of laughter. Don't forget to tip your waitress." As the last pirate fled, nursing both wounds to body and pride, the facility's staff emerged from shelter to find their workspace transformed into a kaleidoscope of light and lingering laughter. The armor settled back into its usual form, but there was a new confidence in its movements, a sense of proven potential finally realized. "Did you really have to add the laugh track?" Dr. Zylox asked, surveying the aftermath. "Trust me," Zhen winked. "Somewhere the Rari are giving me a standing ovation." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so packed. Representatives from every known civilization crowded the tiered seats, all eyes focused on the central platform where Zhen stood, the Rari armor glowing softly around her. Dr. Zylox flanked her left side, while the quantum collective node hovered to her right. "Distinguished members of the Council," Zhen began as the armor projected holographic data streams around her, "what we discovered goes beyond just finding ancient technology. The Rari didn't just visit Earth, they engineered the entire concept of human humor." The chamber erupted in murmurs. A hive mind representative raised all three appendages. "Explain." "The Rari discovered something fundamental about the universe," Zhen continued, as the armor displayed complex mathematical equations that somehow resembled smile patterns. "Consciousness itself has a sense of humor. Reality, at its most basic level, operates on principles of both quantum mechanics and cosmic irony." The armor projected images of early Earth showing Rari ships seeding not just genetic material, but conceptual frameworks into the developing biosphere. "They didn't just give us genes," Zhen explained, "they gave us jokes, puns, the ability to find patterns that create surprise and delight. They engineered our ancestors to recognize the absurd, because they believed that was the key to surviving in an infinite universe." The Void Dancer's representative flickered thoughtfully. "The implications for evolutionary theory are hilarious," Zhen finished. "Think about it. Humans developed advanced tool use, complex social structures, and sophisticated language. But we also developed dad jokes, slapstick, the ability to find humor in our own existence. That wasn't an accident." The armor displayed more data, showing how human neural patterns matched Rari designs with one crucial difference. Humans had evolved beyond their creators' expectations. "The Rari created the foundation," Dr. Zylox added, "but humans took it further. Where the Rari found humor in order, humans found it in chaos. Where they sought perfect timing, humans discovered the joy of perfect mistiming." "We're not just their successors," Zhen continued, as the armor transformed into various shapes, demonstrating the evolution of comedy across species. "We're their greatest joke, a species that took their gift of humor and turned it into an art form. We didn't just inherit their technology, we inherited their understanding that the greatest power in the universe is the ability to laugh at it." The quantum collective node pulsed with realization. The armor's compatibility isn't about DNA matching, Zhen confirmed. It's about matching the Rari's understanding that advanced technology doesn't have to be serious. That true evolution means never losing your sense of wonder or your ability to turn a bad situation into a good story. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans weren't just another species that happened to find Rari technology. They were the culmination of an ancient experiment in cosmic comedy. "So what happens now?" asked the council leader. Zhen grinned as the armor created a display of stars and galaxies, each one twinkling like it was sharing a private joke. Now we share the laughter. The Rari left their legacy not just for humans, but for anyone who can learn to see the universe through their eyes and ours. The armor suddenly projected an image that made everyone in the chamber gasp, a map of thousands of hidden Rari installations across the galaxy, each one waiting to be awakened by the right combination of human humor and alien curiosity. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations," Zhen announced, as the armor transformed into what appeared to be a cosmic court jester's outfit. "Welcome to the greatest show in the universe. The Rari wrote the opening act, humans perfected the routine, and now," she paused for perfect comedic timing, "now it's time for the galaxy's greatest improvisation session." 6 months after the Galactic Council revelation, the universe had become a noticeably weirder place. Humans, once seen as the galactic newcomers, were now sought after as consultants in what they termed tactical humor deployment. The Rari installations, awakening one by one, turned out to be a network of what Zhen called cosmic comedy clubs, places where different species could learn to understand each other through shared laughter. Dr. Zylox, now heading the newly established Department of Xenological Humor Studies, watched as Zhen demonstrated the armor's capabilities to a group of mixed-species diplomats. Today's lesson: how to turn political tensions into improvisational comedy. "Remember," she called out as the armor transformed her into various amusing forms, "the Rari knew that you can't hate someone you're laughing with. It's physically impossible. They literally engineered it that way." The hive mind had started offering comedy classes to its drones, resulting in the galaxy's first hive mind stand-up routine, all members delivering the punchline in perfect unison. The void dancers incorporated humor into their energy patterns, creating what they called quantum comedy, jokes that only became funny when you weren't directly observing them. Even the quantum collective had developed an appreciation for humor, though their attempts at jokes typically involved complex mathematical formulas with punchlines that took 3 days to compute. The armor itself had become more than a symbol of power. It was a bridge between species, a reminder that in an infinite universe, the most advanced technology wasn't about destruction or dominance, but about finding new ways to share joy. "You know what the real punchline is?" Zhen asked one evening as she and Dr. Zylox watched several Zentari crystals attempting to learn juggling. The Rari spent millennia engineering the perfect species to inherit their legacy of laughter, and they ended up with humans, a species that invented dad jokes and cat videos. The armor pulsed with what could only be described as chuckling agreement. "Perhaps," Dr. Zylox suggested, his mandibles twitching in what he'd learned was a smile, "that was exactly what they wanted, not a species that would preserve their humor, but one that would evolve it into something even they couldn't have imagined." Zhen looked out at the stars, the armor shifting to match her contemplative mood. "Well, they wanted someone to keep the galaxy laughing, though I don't think they expected us to do it by introducing the concept of pranking to 17 different species. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, she was sure, the Rari were watching their experiment unfold, and if their predictions about human nature were as good as their engineering. "They're probably laughing their ancient butts off right now," she concluded. "And you know what? That might be the best punchline of all.